first item on the agenda is apologies for absence, and we've been notified that Councillor Devlin can't make this morning, and we have Councillor Pragnell online. Apart from that, we've got everyone. Item number 2, declarations of interest. Take it there are none. Moving on to item number 3, estimated revenue budget outturn 24-25, and Paul's going to give us this report. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Leader. The report monitors the revenue and expenditure against the budget for 24-25 for the period to the 30th of June. On the basis of the latest information, a year-end operational underspend of 1.219 million, or 0.4% of the annual budget, is forecast on the General Fund. The Housing Revenue Account is forecasting an overspend of 124,000 before any drawdown from the HRA reserve. There is sufficient budgeted drawdown in the current year from the reserve to cover this amount. The reason for the variances are set out in the report. The main variances include an overspend on homelessness bed and breakfast accommodation of 1.35 million, an underspend in utilities of 380,000, an over-recovery of interest receivable 300,000, and additional Scottish Government grant support of 922,000. The additional grant support was a late increase in the Scottish Government settlement after the budget was approved. The total grant award was 1.178 million. The report recommends that 256,000 of this increase is allocated to the Health and Social Care Partnership in line with their overall budget share. The position outlined refers to normal operational budgets only. There is also costs of 1.752 million of ongoing COVID pressures which will be met from COVID grants received in previous years. While the reports show a favourable position, it must be recognised it's still early in the financial year and the position could change. In particular, the pay awards, the annual pay awards for both teachers and local government workers have not yet been agreed. The Cabinet is invited to approve the budget adjustments as shown, note the current financial position and approve the transfer of 256,000 of additional grant monies to the Health and Social Care Partnership. Thank you. If there are any questions, Margaret, Kirsty and myself will do our best to answer.
Thank you very much, Paul. Any questions on this report? I can't see anything from Katie. Paul, excellent report. Thank you very much. And a good start to the year in terms of with some estimated savings for the full year, which is always welcome. Just one question on the allocation to HSCP. I know this was a late grant adjustment. Does this now need to go to Council, or is Cabinet sufficient for this?
Leader, normally Cabinet would be sufficient.
Perfect. Thanks for that confirmation, Margaret. And just for information, we did discuss this issue at the Budget Strategy Group, and there was agreement cross-party on that point at that stage. So thanks for that clarification. If there are no other questions on this report, thank you, Paul, for the report, and Margaret and Kirsty for the preparation of that. A lot of details included in it, but it feels as if we're on decent track for the full year. So thank you very much. Can we agree that report? Agreed. Agreed. Thank you very much.
Agreed.
Oh, that was a very strong agreed. Thank you very much, Councillor Pragnell. Moving on to the next item then on the agenda, which is City Deal reallocation of funds, item number 4, and Elaine's going to take this paper. Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you, Leader. This paper refers to a proposal to use East Renfrewshire's share of additional City Deal funds to construct additional business units on land owned by the Council at Crossmill Business Park in Barrhead. The site's in a prominent position, fronting onto Glasgow Road and available for immediate development. There is known demand for more business space in the East Renfrewshire area, and the provision of modern business units will also lead to wider economic benefit. The aim will be to build between 16 to 21,000 square feet of flexible space suitable for offices, light industry, general industry and storage uses. The cost will be approximately £2.6 million, with 86% sought from City Deal and 14% match funding from ERC, which will be offset by the provision of the land provided. The next step is for the City Deal team to prepare and submit an outline business case. The Cabinet is asked to note the proposed development of additional business units at Crossmill Business Park, utilising funds made available from City Deal and the expected costs, approve preparation of the OBC and approve submission of the OBC in accordance with the City Deal Assurance Framework. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Elaine. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Leader. Thanks, Elaine. My overall impression, actually, just of this is that there's several things that have all came together, all at kind of the right time for us, and for the circumstances with the existing Scottish Water, as it who are vacating in the autumn, and then hopefully with the timing that this is something, and it's very good for the area, and I'm aware of the location. So, in terms of, do we have other projects in the pipeline that's, you know, where a set of similar circumstances where funding becomes available, we have more opportunities to do similar?
Within that area? Within
East Renfrewshire or that area?
Within East Renfrewshire. Well, currently we're working on a Brighter Barrhead, and it's a master plan for Barrhead, and that's starting to produce a list of projects that, as funding becomes available, we hope we'll be able to utilise. Well,
that leads on to my next sort of query as well, is about, I'm aware of that roundabout where McDonald's is and where the plots are, and I'm aware of the road's a dead end, and it's the same for the next roundabout. There's another dead end, and then there's that 8-hole area behind, which is obviously, in the event, would be, is that particularly part of it, what you're suggesting?
No, not currently. This is only for the plots G&H, which is just opposite McDonald's.
Well, sorry, yes, but I mean long term, in the future.
Long term, we would hope to develop that. There's been some interest, but there's nothing concrete yet.
But it's an area where it's within our control?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay.
Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on this paper? Doesn't look like it. This looks an excellent project, I think, as Councillor Anderson said. It's dealing with demand that's out there for industrial space, and very welcome, and I hope we can get on with this as fast as we can. So thank you for that. Since this is a City Deal project, I wonder if it's possible to get an update on Ors Road, please.
Thank you, Leader. If I could pick that up. As we mentioned at the last Cabinet meeting, the project has been delayed, both by ground conditions that were unexpected and also by the weather conditions that we've experienced this summer, which have been wetter than usual. The team are working hard to put together a revised programme, but we're not yet at a point where we think that we have a robust end date that we believe that we could announce publicly as the final date that the project will be finished. So if you could just bear with us a little longer, we will come back to you as soon as we can with a solid date that we believe is the final date.
Thanks for that update. Are there any other questions on this paper? Can we agree item number 4? Agreed? Agreed. Yes, nice loud agreed from Councillor Pragnell. Good, keep that up. Okay, moving on to item number 5, housing allocation letting target change, and Suzanne will be taking this paper. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you.
The purpose of this paper is to provide Cabinet of the emergency changes required to lettings targets within the lettings policy and ask Cabinet to homologate this decision. With regards to homeless households, the existing policy has the following maximum targets, which state that up to 40% of new homes are allocated to homeless households and up to 70% of existing council homes are allocated to homeless households. However, members are aware that the number of homeless applications has increased year on year, and from around about 300 in 2018-19 to 484 in 2023-24. To address this need, the Council has around 200-250 empty homes each year, with additional support from Barrhead Housing Association. However, this is not enough to meet existing demand. Whilst the policy has been set to deliver a high proportion of lets to homeless households, demand in the backlog of households waiting for housing remains very high. In addition, there are existing tenants who are seeking to move and cannot secure new accommodation. However, when an existing council tenant is rehoused, the let not only meets their need, but their relet is also allocated to another household. In the meantime, housing services are in the process of allocating 105 new build homes at Maidenhill and Newton Mearns, and bids were sought for this in May 2024. To date, 52 of these homes from this project have been allocated using the existing policy. If the policy remained in place, 42 of these homes will be allocated to homeless households and 32 to existing council tenants. And in addition, by re-letting those homes vacated by those tenants, the further 22 properties become available for homeless households. So in total, this project would release 64 homes to meet the need of homeless households. However, the paper proposes that for the remaining properties not yet let, that we prioritise those to council tenants who have bid for the properties so far. This approach would aim to increase turnover and meet the needs of homeless households. If implemented, it would be about 38 homes would go to homeless households at Maidenhill and 45 to existing tenants. However, in addition, that releases a further 32 homes that we can then re-let to homeless households. So in total, this approach would release 70 homes to households, and that's 6 more homes than previously proposed. The allocate processing is underway for this, and to ensure no rent loss was incurred, approval was sought from Councillors O'Donnell and Councillor Devlin on the 20th of August 2024. In summary, over the past few years, the need for housing for homeless households has increased year on year. However, despite new provision of council housing, demand continues to supply outstrips demand. A review of the existing policy is underway to ensure addressing housing concerns to those most in need, and a full consultation exercise was taken, and the policy was presented to Cabinet in due course. However, in the meantime, Cabinet are asked to note the current demand for council housing in East Renfrewshire, and particularly the increase in homelessness, and homologate the decision to amend the LETS allocation to key groups. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. Any questions on this, Councillor Anderson?
Well, it's more of a comment, really. It's just to say that I obviously support this. Obviously, you had previous discussions with the leader and Councillor Devlin, but it's a very good balance, I think, of just trying to do the best of what you can, and with a very difficult situation. So, absolutely, that's the comment, really. We'll support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Pragnell.
Thanks, Suzanne, for this report. I've just got a few questions. When will existing tenants who have been successful in the bidding process have been informed that they will be moving? And also, when will tenants get the keys to these properties?
Following the decision made by Councillor Devlin and Councillor O'Donnell, we've already started the process of allocating to existing tenants. However, existing tenants do have to pass a number of checks around rent arrears, property conditions, so we're in the process of doing those checks just now. In terms of the properties, we have a handover schedule from Callow Homes, who are building the properties. We have 21 handed over to date. The remaining will be handed over in phases between now and January 2025. So depending on what house they're allocated, when they'll get their keys.
Okay, thank you so much.
My comment really is to thank the housing team for the work. There's been a huge amount of work being done, not just on this allocation policy, but the acceleration of the homes at Maidenhill, which is most welcome. That took a lot of work to make that happen, so thank you very much for that much needed extra housing. And as you alluded to, we have discussed this in depth with Councillor Devlin. Allocation policies are always quite tricky to get the right balance, but I think this is a good balance between providing need for existing tenants to make sure that they get their needs addressed, as well as actually increasing the number of homes that get released to the homeless. So thank you for the work on that, and I think we're all in agreement with this proposal, so thank you very much. So if we can go on to the next item on the agenda, which is item number 6, update on digital transformation programme, and that has been taken by Jamie Reid. Thank you, Jamie.
Good morning. So, as you said, the report here is on the achievements of the digital transformation programme over the last year. Members will be aware that we have 3 components to our digital transformation programme around our customers, our workforce productivity and our business systems and processes, and the report sets out a backwards and forwards look in terms of the programme. I would maybe just draw members' attention to a couple of key points within the report. In terms of our customers, we've seen a 50% increase in registered users in the MyEStrend platform, growing over the last year. Almost a quarter of our council tax billing is now paperless. 53% of our new council tax inquiries are now being received online. East Renfrewshire also has the highest level of parent portal engagement in Scotland, and at the end of the year we were covering there, our housing colleagues have brought a new system online which will introduce a range of quite exciting and positive developments for our tenants as well in terms of online services. And we're also continuing to deploy a new customer contact platform that is helping to improve the customer experience when our customers contact us by telephone or email, and is also in the future a mechanism for us to increase the resilience of our customer contact system in things like extreme weather events where staff can work from any location. It's also maybe just worth highlighting as well in terms of work productivity. We're expanding the usefulness and insight of our data across a range of examples. Data and automation processes are helping to our workforce to be more productive and in a range of ways as well, and you'll see there's an invoicing example of some of the work that's been done there. And also our business systems and processes, are actually improving the invoice payments. So again, there's a range of activities on there that are helping our services be more effective. The paper also sets out our focus for the next year, so it highlights that we will be updating the strategy, taking account of national developments around transformation. We'll continue to progress the adoption of online customer services. There'll be a significant refresh of our ICT infrastructure underway, and there are new projects coming forward around data matching and automation that have quite potentially significant impacts on our customers and services for the better. So members are asked to note the achievements of the programme over the last year and note the direction of travel going forward. Happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Jamie. Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Leader. Thanks, Jamie. First observation, actually, I know we've probably had previous updates, but again, overall impression of this is that there's significant momentum actually now with digital transformation and impact, and it not only it's throughout the council. Obviously, it talks about housing, it talks about education, it talks about finance, all of these areas, and the key thing, obviously, ultimately, is the better service that we provide, to our customers, our clients, the public. So I've got some specific questions. Great to see the widening of the 24/7 access as well, I would say. Seeing regards to the telephone system and this new platform that allows customer services, and you talked about the resilience that it brings, the flexibility for us to respond to people no matter the circumstances. Is that cloud, or do we host that ourselves in Barrhead? And does it integrate with our internal phone system so that, calls can be routed, if necessary, if it's pertinent at all, to staff?
So it's cloud, and yes, it does. Yeah.
back on again. Sorry, but the number of like the 230 days each year, 600 hours per year. This is what transformation is all about, and the technology. So delighted to see that, and the overall benefit though is that this allows us, because of what we're doing here, is the impact it will have elsewhere as well. So delighted to see that, and obviously very much looking forward to looking for the future. And this momentum's kept going, and you're raising the bar pretty high. And I'm hoping that. So one key question is that are the staff receptive and embracing all it, this transformation? Because sometimes people don't like change, but once they see what it can do for them, then I'd like to know a bit about that.
So yeah, no, thank you for that. So yeah, I mean, I think what I would say is that a lot of these programmes come from the services themselves. So really, there's a strong service ownership within that. There is obviously, depending on the individual programme, the change journey will be more or less challenging depending on the individual programme itself. But across the board, these programmes have strong ownership. So obviously, our education department was heavily committed to the adoption and rollout of parent pay, and parents themselves were keen to get that kind of more flexible, easy access way of being able to pay money. Equally, our housing colleagues are heavily invested in the modernisation of the housing service, and they have real ownership of that, and they want to see that and drive it forward. So those are kind of the examples that you see. Our business intelligence and management insight project has been, if you like, prioritised on a corporate basis by services bringing forward use cases and analysis, and then that's been triaged, and we've invested the time in that. So there is a lot of service buy-in from that, and we'll continue to engage and build on that. That's not to say though that there are complex projects in here, and there are sometimes difficult changes to be made. But again, that there's work and discussion with services about how that change management process is taken through.
Great, and I think the key word you mentioned there is ownership, and it's fantastic if they are wanting the change, then and they're going to, and that's great. Final comment is that I think a huge congratulations to the fact that the automated processes we have within payroll, and ultimately the long drawn out process to for disputes that we had with regard to settling pay, that the payroll team were able to deliver that in December, and we're one of the few councils that were able to do so just before Christmas. I think that's significant, and they should be congratulated for that. Thank you.
I'm happy to pass that along to the team. Thank you. I know they put an enormous amount of work in, although there was set improvements there. The team put a huge amount of work in, and they deserve credit for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Pragnell.
Thank you for this report, Jamie. I would just like to seek a bit of reassurance. We know that a large proportion of our residents prefer to access council services online as it's more convenient for them. But can you just give me reassurance that those that aren't computer literate or choose not to use services online can still access the full breadth of council services, whether that's coming into the offices or having a telephone appointment?
Thanks, Councillor Pragnell. Yes, I'm happy to say that at this point we have not taken a decision to make any of our services that we're talking about here purely online. We are aware of that not all of our customers will choose to do that. While we're mindful that online services can improve our efficiency and effectiveness in a range of areas, we do undertake equality impact assessments in terms of the rollout of programmes and projects, so that is built into our considerations when we move forward.
Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pragnell. Jamie, I'd just like to follow on from Councillor Anderson's comments. There's clearly is momentum, there's a lot of activity going on, and it's great to see the quantification of the savings that you put in for 23-24 and 24-25. These, as you know, are needed more than ever. But it's not just about savings, it's about product and service quality as well, and delivering the services that our residents expect in this day and age. So thanks for that. Some very specific comments, if you can bear with me. We talk about the new telephone system, so I'm wondering if there's any colour you can give on terms of queuing times and data on that, and if that's improved or deteriorated. The second question is on licensing. I was really glad to see that that's in the pipeline, because I get an awful lot of complaints from taxi drivers locally about the process. Whenever I'm in a taxi cab and make the mistake of telling them who I am, I get a lot of complaints about that. So what our plans on that would be helpful to hear. Finally, thirdly, on HSCP. Obviously, we know that the HSCP is under critical financial concerns at the moment. So what can we do, or what are the thoughts in terms of using technology to help, particularly on the preventative side of things? And what is the engagement with HSCP, and what's the process for moving those sort of projects along? And then finally, any thoughts we have on managing heat in our buildings using technology to, again, directly reduce costs. So there's quite a few questions there, Jimmy, so if you can indulge me, thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. So just in terms of your first one around queuing time, so there's an intersection between our implementation of the new platform and our management insight projects that are looking at the data. So we've already got some early dashboard builds that are starting to really pull through some of that information. The new system comes with a lot of insightful information within it, and the team are already actively looking at ways to minimise queuing time. So that includes, the new system includes the ability, for example, to push out advanced messaging to people, so that they can let them know that the queuing time is longer, and then people can either choose to opt out of that and come back at another point, or just be aware, set their expectations on that as well. There's also work going on at the moment as part of the Management Insight project, again tied to the customer programme, that is looking at the kind of sources of customer inquiries, and starting to understand and pick up where we need to understand more about why customers are contacting us, and also trying to get insight about repeat individual contacting us multiple times. So trying to take that failure demand out of the system. So that is ongoing work. At the moment, it's complex. There are some business systems and processes that we'll need to change slightly to actually give us, I suppose, a better insight into what's behind some things. But that work is actively ongoing at the moment as part of the programme. In terms of licensing, that project is live and moving forward at the moment. It is, again, it's a big complex project. There's a lot of statutory processes wrapped within that at the moment. So we are looking, I think that project will run into next year, but there is, again, active work. It's a high priority within the programme, and we are looking to do what we can to make that process as effective as we can. In terms of your comment about the HSCP, yes, we are in constant discussion with all our departments and sort of the HSCP and the Trust as well. In terms of the prevention piece, there is a broad discussion within the organisation about how we get insight around and a shift towards prevention. I think it's fair to say at the moment, though, that we've seen post-pandemic, a lot of our services are very much being forced into a reactive mode. You know, members will know very well that service demand has gone up, complexity has gone up of cases that we're facing. So our staff are being quite, being forced onto a more reactive footing. And also we just appreciate the resource challenges more broadly. However, there are ongoing discussions across the board at CMT levels and through the transformation areas about the opportunities for how we shift to prevention. But that's going to be challenging. If we don't know, we have to be realistic about it. We all want to do it, but it is going to be challenging. But we remain keen to try and get that to be part of it, and you'll also see that that's part of our broader Place to Go vision for the future agenda as well. So I can give you assurance that that's something that is on all of our agendas. In terms of the last question, in terms of the managing the heat piece, again, I probably think that's maybe one that I can throw in my colleagues there, as I probably don't quite have the information on that.
Yeah, in broad terms, so for example, think about managing heat load in buildings such as schools and depots, things like that. There are building management systems that are available to us where you are able to control essentially even within individual rooms the heat load within it. And so, for example, in my last authority in Highland was able to control heat load in a school in Thurso from Inverness, 120 miles away. So it is possible to do. However, there is quite a lot of work still to be done until we actually get to the point where we are able to control it with such a level of accuracy across all of our buildings. But that's something that we're very much working towards, and that will be done in conjunction with the Get to Zero team in terms of the overarching efficiencies within the estate, and that will also plug into other works, for example, such as around local heat networks and various other allied works streams that are going on in connection with all of those things. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Mark, and thanks, Jamie, for that. Just on the queuing times, perhaps for the next report, if we could see where we are compared to a baseline now, I think that would be helpful, because that gives a sense of the impact of those changes. Also licensing, so that I can reassure the cab drivers in East Renfrewshire, if, as and when you're ready to share a programme, that would be helpful to know. And Mark's comments are very welcome on heat management. Obviously, this is a direct cost to the council, so the quicker we can get to some of those challenges, probably the better. So with that, so thank you very much, Jamie. As said earlier on, a lot of progress, a lot of continued progress, and as you say in your report, a lot of it is about incremental changes, which add up to a lot of impact. So thank you very much for that. So can we agree this report? Agreed?
Agree.
Agreed. Thank you very much. So moving on to the final item on the agenda, which is item number 7, Freedom of Information, Annual Report 23-24, and this report will be taken by Craig Geddes. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Chair. An annual report on freedom of information has been presented to Cabinet since the legislation came into force in 2005, and this report presents a statistical summary of the information requests received by the Council over the financial year 2023-24. During the period of this report, the Council received 893 requests under the Freedom of Information Scotland Act and 527 requests under the related Environmental Information Regulations. There's a total of 1,420 requests, an increase of some 4% on the previous year. The report notes that 90% of requests were responded to within the statutory timescale of 20 working days, and that, as in previous years, the considerable majority of requests were answered in full, with most of the remainder refused on technical grounds that information was not held or that it was otherwise available. It's recommended that Cabinet note the content of the report, but I'm happy to take any questions or comments that you have.
Thank you very much, Craig. Any comments? Councillor Anderson.
It's a question really within the stats. Obviously, there's a 4%, or I can't remember the figure, was in terms of increase. Within the actual departments, though, I do notice, obviously, I have noticed it's significantly environment. Is there variations within them where, you know, there's been an increase in a particular area, and any idea of the background as to why possibly that's occurred?
The volume of requests received has been relatively constant. I think differential performance is down more to changes in staffing or in procedures within the department. I don't know if that answers your question.
I'm just trying to get my head around the nature of the requests and why the public are submitting them, and is it a particular department for some reason, and for certain changes in regulations or legislation possibly that there's more requests going to a particular department for some reason.
Like I don't think there's been any legislative change that's resulted in the increase. I noticed on further research, not included in the report, that the increase across Scotland has been 13% over the year. So we have a lower increase than that. That may well be because of our proactive publication scheme. Getting information up on the website means that you're not therefore required to provide a bespoke response. We've been encouraging departments to think about the requests they're receiving, the information they hold, and how they can head off requests by getting information out there in the first place, save them having to generate the requests. On our response rate, 90%, the Scottish average across all sectors is 89%, and across local authorities it's 90%, so we're pretty much in the middle. And given that I think we get a larger number pro rata relative to our publication, because there's so many round robin requests that go to every authority, and therefore they more directly impact smaller authorities like ours, that figure represents a decent improvement on not last year but on the previous years in terms of getting the answers out on time.
I suppose then a kind of secondary question to the environment, if there are a large number of these, does this affect you operationally in terms of the time it takes to supply information if you have to support this?
I'm happy to answer that question. Yes, it is a big resource requirement for the department in terms of the quantity of the requests that we get and the time that it does take for officers essentially to come off their frontline job to respond to those. And as a small local authority, there are a number of services where it's one officer who's responsible for the function, and if that person's on leave for any reason, there are single points of failure where, and that's when time can just carry through. The discussion that we had there just on energy and buildings, we have one officer who's responsible for managing all that bill payment, and if they're not available to answer inquiries, then we do have to reallocate and try and get somebody else to access the information that's held, which is not always easily accessible if it's a single point. So there's no doubt it is a big resource requirement for the department, and year on year we are making savings, and that can involve a reduction in headcount, and at the same time we're going against an increase in number of inquiries. So again, that just all adds to the pressure that staff can be under to meet the timelines required in this. And I think there is a real desire to get more information publicly available out there that people can just access directly and be really transparent in the information that is available, so people can self-help. I think that is the key here, but all of that just takes time and resources to work that through.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you in terms of just make sure that, because then you can actually see this information is readily available, and you also point the people in the right direction, I'm assuming. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think, Craig, you answered one of my questions, was how do we compare to the nationally? So it's good to see that we're a little bit lower than the national trend, but obviously it is still upwards, and as been stated, it's still a significant burden on the council in terms of work effort in order to respond to these. I really appreciate your comments on being more proactive in terms of getting information out in the public domain. I think that will certainly help. It won't solve all of the requests, no doubt, but it's certainly a good approach to take, so thank you for that. I don't see any questions from Councillor Pragno, so are we happy to agree this report? Agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. And with that, that is the end of today's Cabinet meeting. Thank you very much.